everyone. Happy Saturday. It is that time again for another edition of Did You Know? And I'm glad to be here. So, today's topic, we're going to be talking about something called toxic positivity. I don't know if you've heard of that. That is actually a term that I have just recently heard myself, but in my research, I found that toxic positivity, the phrasing has been around for the last couple of years. So we're going to get into that and define it, of course, and just go over an article and see what it is. And of course, I'd like to get your thoughts about it. But before we jump into the topic, I'm going to introduce myself formally. I am Jessica N.W. Scott. I'm the owner and CEO of Journey to Change Counseling Services, LLC. And I am a therapist, an educator, a child advocate, and I do these videos to hopefully help improve your life or the life of someone you know. So if you're interested in an appointment, I do have some slots available. You can contact the office at 678-884-6844, or you can contact me directly at 478-918-3494. Okay, so we're going to hop right into this. So as per usual, I found an article because I am a research type of person and I like to find articles about the subject. And so we're going to go ahead and define the words toxic positivity, the phrasing. Let's see what it is. So, of course, when you go on Google, my favorite search engine and the favorite search engine for a lot of you, you will find multiple articles that pull up. I found one from verywellmind.com. I've used that article before, that website before. And I've also found one today in particular that we're going to use from medicalnewstoday.com. Medicalnewstoday.com. So if you want to take a look yourself, you can. And if you wanted to read all the way through, feel free. So that's where we're coming from today. And so we're just going to go through this article. So in the beginning, the article says, what to know about toxic positivity. So it says it's an obsession with positive thinking. It is the belief that people should put a positive spin on all experiences, even those that are profoundly tragic. And so we're just going to stop right there with the definition. I think that we have seen this before, an uptick really with social media becoming more and more popular. People may feel that they have to put on a happy face, have to put on a good front for the camera, smile for the camera, be happy. If you are sad or feeling any other emotion around anyone else, you may be told that you're bleeding on people emotionally or something like that, which that does happen because that is very true and very likely that you can emotionally bleed on others. But we want to distinguish the difference about being toxic positive versus just bleeding on people. Bleeding on people means you are hurting in some kind of way and you don't realize that you are projecting your hurt onto other people. That is not a good thing either. But toxic positivity is the opposite of that, at least from the definition that I understand on here. So we're going to go on through. It says toxic positivity can silence negative emotions, demean grief, and make people feel under pressure to pretend to be happy, even when they're struggling. And in some cases, it can be self-imposed. So if you struggle with perfectionism or something like that, or you struggle with any other emotional issues and you feel like you're just always the party pooper and the downer, you may struggle with this and have imposed on yourself that, hey, I have to be positive. I have to find a silver lining in everything because, things happen in life and I just have to keep going. Okay, so a little further down this article, it says for decades, books and popular media have highlighted the potential value of positive thinking. So don't get me wrong, positive thinking is very valuable. However, we want to make sure that our positive thinking is used appropriately. And so that's really what this is talking about when it's referring to toxic positivity. It basically is saying that people are using positive thinking in inappropriate situations, or in therapist terms, people will have the inappropriate affect for the situation. So let's see, a little further down in this article, it says some examples of toxic positivity include telling a parent whose child has died to be happy that at least they can have children. We have to be really careful. That phrase, at least, that part in there can become really dangerous, can become very damaging. Um, Someone who has suffered something that tragic, they don't want to hear about at least this or at least that. The fact of the matter is, they have lost their child. That's it, period. The end. They are hurting. So you don't want to try to just come up with something positive. And it kind of ties back into some videos I've talked about before with grief. Sometimes you don't have to say anything at all, you just have to simply be there. When you start reaching and grasping for straws and grasping for things to say, unfortunately, we can become toxically positive and offer words that are not encouraging and that are damaging and hurting to the person who is receiving the words. Asserting after a catastrophe that everything happens for a reason is considered toxic positivity. And I will be truthful. I have thought that in the past for some stuff. If you're a more logical thinking person, if you're not really a feelings type person, you may have thought those things because you cannot connect the same way some other people do with their feelings when things happen. Not to say that you don't have feelings, but you sometimes might think, oh well, maybe that was meant to happen. So let me just get on it and get over it and press forward. But unfortunately, that is not the most healthy mindset to have. Sometimes it's just good, like I said, to not say anything at all and just let things be what they are, allow the emotions that are there to be there. Another example is urging someone to focus on positive aspects of a devastating loss. So that could be a loss of a job, that could be loss of a pet, that could be loss of a friendship, a romantic relationship, anything that's devastating to that person. You want to encourage them, yes, but you don't want to dismiss their emotion in that point in time. So, like with grief and everything else, one of the biggest ways to support someone is simply being there, letting them know, hey, I'm sorry that you're going through this. I'm sorry that this happened to you. I'm here for you if you want to talk. If you want to do something to get your mind off of it, let me know. Because sometimes people don't want the distraction. You kind of have to follow that person's lead to see. And every situation is different. So there's not a formula for it. And if you're more of a thinker than a feeler, you might think, oh, well, maybe there's a way for me to tell so I can know what to do. You just simply follow that person's lead. Another example is labeling people who always appear positive or do not share their emotions as being stronger or more likable than others. So when you label people who appear positive, it can give them extra pressure to always appear positive, even if they're having a bad day, a bad moment, they have some stuff going on in their life. That might happen with people who have been very popular. Especially in like middle school, high school, if you are a very popular person, you may have felt that extra pressure of, oh, well, I can't show that I'm sad or show that I'm angry because people are counting on me to be a certain way because this is the image of me that they have based off of past experience. Urging people to thrive no matter what adversity they face. So the example they give for this is during the COVID-19 pandemic when you saw a variety of videos online saying, that while people were enforced to be at home, they should have been developing a skill or improving their fitness or doing something productive. Everybody's mind doesn't work the same, and it was not a requirement or a necessity for them to do anything productive. It was good for some people to be able to get up out of their bed every day, for them to take care of themselves in a normal fashion with just basic functions. COVID-19 was very stressful on a lot of people's mental state. And so it brought out a lot of things that people did not expect, that people did not know how to deal with. So you definitely did not want to use toxic positivity and tell them, hey, make lemonade out of lemons in this situation. Acknowledge the fact people were having a rough time. People were afraid. There was a lot of things going on. And then the final example they have on here is brushing off someone's concerns by saying it could be worse. Saying it could be worse, a lot of times we find that people will say that on themselves. Oh, I have X, Y, and Z, but to not appear as a complainer or not to appear as negative, they might say, well, I had this happen to me, but I'm glad it could be worse, so I'm not going to complain. But the reality is it's still a difficult situation, so you want to acknowledge the difficulty and the emotions and the mental strain that might cause from whatever situation it was. And so further in this article, it talks about why positive toxic positivity is dangerous and risky. And it says that it might lead people to believe that they have to be positive and ignore serious problems or not address underlying mental health issues. We want to make sure that we do not ignore our emotions. Even something simple as when someone asks you how you're doing. I'm a big proponent of telling the truth when someone asks me how I'm doing. It catches people off guard all the time, but you can start at something that simple. You can be truthful with yourself, you can be truthful with others. You do not have to tell all of your business. However, you can be truthful. If someone says, hey, how you doing? If you're tired, you can be like, I'm tired. And that person, can respond appropriately, like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you're able to get rest, and you keep it moving. Or, hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm not having such a great day. It's been rough today. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope that your day gets better. So people can respond to you appropriately if you tell the truth versus saying, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm well, and you're not feeling well. You're not actually good. You're not actually fine. Um, and you don't want it to be a thing where every day you're like, oh yeah, something's wrong, and you're just going off on a rant and dumping on people. But you can stand in your truth and tell the truth and not be toxically positive. Just stand in your truth. Let's see. Ignoring real harm. So some of the risks of toxic positivity include ignore real harm. So we'll see this a lot in domestic violence situations where you will know that something is not right. That person is being abused in some kind of way, but they refuse to admit what's happening. They refuse to admit that they're in a toxic situation. And that they're being abused and those types of things. And so it just makes it very hard because they'll be like, oh, well, they didn't mean it, or, it's no big deal and it'll be fine. They can change. They'll be better. They just had a bad day. Those are making excuses for that person. And that is now what we call toxic positivity. It now has a label. Demeaning a loss. So once again, we're talking about grief. Grief and sadness is a normal part of life, unfortunately. And so you want to make sure that you're not telling someone, oh, well, you should have moved on by now, just keep living your life and move past this because things are going to get better. You just have to be really careful with your encouragement and choose your words carefully. Sometimes if you're not sure, just don't say anything at all. Toxic positivity can cause isolation and stigma. So it goes back to people feeling pressured to smile all the time and not to have to seek support, to be independent, to just handle the situation because they're trying to see the good in everything bad that has happened. Sometimes you just have to say, you know what? I'm having a hard time. I can't deal with anybody else's stuff right now. I just need to deal with my own. And of course, people might be like, oh, well, that's selfish. Well, guess what? You got to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else. As I've said multiple times before, if you've ever watched me, I am a big advocate of you cannot pour from an empty cup. So you got to fill your own cup. And if that means stepping away from everybody for a while until you're able to get yourself together, then you do that. Communication issues can be caused by toxic positivity. So, if you are toxically positive, if you're communicating with someone in a relationship and you're not telling them the truth, they don't really know how to help you address any situations or any negative things that might be in a relationship. The relationship will not improve, and more than likely, the relationship will fall apart. Because over time, basically, they're going to be like, okay, so you don't trust me enough to tell me the truth. You've been lying to me in this relationship. I don't really need this. I need someone who we can share and be open and vulnerable and truthful with each other. Toxic positivity can also cause low self esteem. So it encourages people to ignore their negative emotions, and even though stifling them can make them feel more powerful. So when a person is unable to feel positive, they may feel as though they are failing. So if the world around them, from their perspective, is telling them, be positive, be positive, be positive, no matter what's going on, they may feel like they're a failure when they're not feeling positive when something is happening. Come here to tell you that feeling sad, feeling angry, not feeling in the mood to do things, feeling kind of meh or blah, those are all normal emotions. Sometimes it can happen. Now, if you have a long or extended period of time of meh, blah, sad, then you may have depression or something like that, and you may need to see a professional. Um, let's see here, how to avoid toxic positivity. So it says you can recognize negative emotions as normal and an important part of the human experience. Identify and name emotions rather than trying to avoid them. So that goes back to what I was saying, knowing, being aware and knowing your truth and standing in your truth. Talking with trusted people about your emotions, including negative feelings, and seeking support from non-judgmental people such as trusted friends or therapists. That can be really hard because sometimes you may want to talk to certain people, and you just, anything you say to them, they're gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be all right, it's gonna be fine, don't worry about that, and you just pick yourself up. Sometimes you just want somebody to be a listening ear, and you want to be able to trust that whoever you talk to is not going to try to give you advice necessarily, that they're just going to be there to listen to you and be a listening ear. So if you do not have those people in your life, make sure to try to at least find one person, and you can find that in friends that you trust, or like the article says, a therapist. A person can avoid imposing toxic positivity on others by encouraging people to openly speak about their emotions. We know that there are some people that you just cannot talk to about your emotions because you already know how they're going to respond, and you just know that you cannot trust them with your emotions. Do not become that person. Be the person that is open, where if someone needs to express something other than something positive, that they feel comfortable enough to be able to share it with you, if that's what you want. Because of course everyone has boundaries and everyone has gifts and talents, and you may not be that type of person that can be support at the time. Just be aware enough to know what you can and can't do, realistically. So get more comfortable with negative emotions. Now, this is a big one and it's a hard one. Negative emotions, of course, we know they are not pleasant to feel. And a lot of times, nobody wants to be sad. Nobody wants to be depressed. No one wants to be grieving. It's just not something that you just are comfortable sitting in voluntarily. Most of the time when something happens, it's because it has happened in life, and it's nothing that we've done to ask for that. So that's a very big one. And so that's one to not take lightly. So it takes time, it takes practice. So give yourself a break and just take one day and one step at a time. Avoid trying to have a positive response to everything a person says. Goes back to what I said in the beginning. You don't always have to have something to say. Sometimes you just simply just need to be there in support and have other people do the same. So if someone's trying to give you encouragement and it's basically you recognize it as toxic positivity, just ask them, hey, I don't need any advice. If you would just be here for me, I would really appreciate that. Just being able to verbalize what you need and communicate clearly will make things a whole lot better as we move away from toxic positivity. And finally, recognizing that intense negative emotions often coincide with powerful positive emotions, such as when profound grief signals intense love. So, once again, grief has been a big theme of this particular article, but we know that when we lose loved ones, we have a deep level of grief because we love them deeply. So just know that it's normal and just take one day at a time. You don't have to be back to normal or be back to yourself in a certain period of time. You can process your emotions day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, because our emotions are very fluid and we know that they change very often. So, in summary, according to this article, it says toxic positivity encourages people to ignore difficult emotions, potentially intensifying the power of these feelings. So we want to make sure that we remember and know that positive thinking is not bad in and of itself. It just becomes bad or toxic, as the popular buzzword is used, when the negative emotions at the time are being dismissed, ignored, downplayed, or there's just pressure to hide those emotions. I want to know what you all think about toxic positivity. First, have you heard of toxic positivity? If you have, what was your definition of toxic positivity? What do you think about it? Have you experienced this in your own life? And have you been a person to accidentally do this to other people and you didn't realize? Let me know in the comments. I appreciate you all taking the time out to listen. As always, I look forward to the conversation with you. If you have not liked my page, please go do so. Like Journey to Change Counseling Services LLC on Facebook, Journey to Change Counseling on Instagram, and Journey to Change Counseling on YouTube. And I will hope to see you again soon. You all take care. Bye.